She was bought for $250 and a handful of Coca-Cola bottles. A small chestnut mare with soft eyes, who had no idea she was about to become a legend, who did not know that her name would be whispered with reverence by Marines decades after the ground stopped shaking with artillery fire. They called her reckless, not because she was careless, but because recklessness is what war demands when hope is dying and ammunition is running out and men are bleeding into the frozen Korean soil. She didn't sign up for war, didn't understand glory or medals or the weight of a nation's gratitude. She just understood the weight on her back, the path up the mountain, the voice of the Marine who needed her to make one more trip when her legs were shaking and her lungs were burning and every instinct screamed to stop. You've carried things that weren't yours to carry, haven't you? Burdens that broke your back, while everyone else just kept asking for more, kept loading you up with their emergencies, their crises, their wars, and you kept going because stopping felt like betrayal, like admitting you weren't strong enough, like proving what you secretly feared, that you were always expendable. You know what it's like to be useful but invisible, essential but replaceable, the one everyone needs but nobody really sees. You've made trips up your own mountains, emotional, financial, psychological, carrying loads that would have crushed someone weaker. But nobody gave you a medal. Nobody wrote your name in history books. Nobody even noticed you were bleeding. You just kept moving because that's what you do. That's what you've always done. That's the only way you know how to prove your worth. You don't rest because rest feels like weakness. You don't ask for help because help feels like failure. You don't stop because stopping means confronting the fact that you've been running on empty for so long, you forgot what full feels like. She carried 75 pounds of ammunition on her back, sometimes more, up a mountain so steep that men struggled to climb it without any load at all, through terrain so hostile that every step could trigger a landmine, every shadow could hide an enemy, every breath could be the last one. She made 51 trips in a single day during the Battle of Outpost Vegas, 51 times up that hellish slope, while explosions shattered the air around her, while shrapnel sliced through the darkness, while the screams of wounded Marines echoed off the rocks. She didn't do it once and get praised. She did it again and again and again. Each trip more exhausting than the last. Each climb more impossible. But the Marines needed ammunition and she carried ammunition. And that simple equation was enough to keep her legs moving even when they trembled with fatigue. She was wounded twice, shrapnel tearing into her flesh, but she didn't stop, didn't break formation, didn't abandon the mission. Because loyalty doesn't calculate odds, devotion doesn't weigh costs, and love doesn't stop loving just because it hurts. The men who fought alongside her said she had more courage than most humans they knew, that she seemed to understand the stakes, that she would navigate the trails in complete darkness, without guidance, finding her way back to the Marines who needed what she carried like they needed air. She ate anything, rations, Hershey bars, scrambled eggs, even beer, and nobody teased her for it because she'd earned the right to whatever small comfort she could find in that frozen nightmare. She slept in the tents with the Marines, stood her ground during mortar attacks when horses are supposed to bolt, carried wounded men on her back when the stretcher bearers couldn't reach them, and became so essential to the unit that losing her would have felt like losing a commanding officer. Here's the truth that will shatter you. She was never supposed to matter this much, was purchased almost as an afterthought, a pack animal to lighten the load, a tool with a heartbeat, but she became something else entirely. She became hope on four legs, proof that loyalty still existed in a world designed to kill it. Evidence that some creatures are born with a kind of courage that can't be taught or trained, only witnessed and honored. The Marines didn't see a horse when they looked at her. They saw a sister in arms, a fellow warrior, a soul that chose to stay when leaving was possible, that chose to serve when self-preservation was reasonable, that chose love when fear would have been justified. She saved lives not because she was ordered to, but because the men she served had earned her devotion, had treated her with dignity, had made her part of something larger than survival. Every trip she made was a choice. To keep going when stopping was easier. To face danger when safety was available. To give everything when giving anything was already too much. She proved that heroism is not about species or size or strength. It's about showing up when you're terrified, continuing when you're exhausted, staying when everyone would understand if you left. The war ended and she didn't become a forgotten footnote. The Marines who served with her fought to bring her to America, raised money to transport her, welcomed her home with the kind of ceremony reserved for generals, because she'd earned it with blood and sweat and trips up that mountain that would haunt their dreams forever. You can stop carrying alone, not by abandoning your responsibilities, but by recognizing that your worth isn't measured by how much you can endure in silence. That asking for support isn't betrayal, that the strongest thing you can do is admit when the load is too heavy. Start by naming one thing you're carrying that isn't yours, one burden you picked up because nobody else would, but that's slowly crushing you. Tell someone the truth about how tired you are, not in a way that demands they fix it, but in a way that lets the secret out, that breaks the isolation, that admits you're not superhuman. Give yourself permission to rest without guilt, to stop without shame, to be exhausted without apologizing, because you've already made more trips up more mountains than most people will ever understand, and that deserves honor, not more expectations. Sergeant Reckless was promoted twice, became a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, was awarded 2 Purple Hearts, a Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal, and became the only animal to officially hold military rank, not as a publicity stunt, but as recognition that she'd served with distinction, that her contributions were real, that her sacrifice mattered as much as any human's. She lived to be 20 years old, spent her final years in peace at Camp Pendleton, grazing in California sunshine while Marines visited her to pay respects, to touch the mare who'd carried them through hell, to tell their children about the horse who was braver than fear, stronger than exhaustion, more faithful than most humans they'd ever known. She died surrounded by love, remembered by warriors, immortalized by a corps that doesn't give honor lightly. And even now, decades after her heart stopped beating, her name carries weight. Her story inspires devotion. Her legacy proves that the smallest among us can hold the line when everything is falling apart. You are not just a pack animal for everyone else's emergencies, not just a beast of burden for other people's wars. You are Sergeant Reckless whether anyone has promoted you or not, whether anyone has given you a medal or not, whether anyone has noticed or not because you've made the trips, carried the weight, bled for others, and kept moving when stopping would have been easier. And that makes you a warrior even if the only battlefield is the one inside your chest. The mountain doesn't get easier, but you get stronger with every climb. And somewhere in the future someone will tell your story with the same reverence we tell hers, because courage that carries others never really dies. It just waits to be honored by those who finally understand what it cost.